All right, guys, welcome back. I am super excited, as you can only imagine, to talk about a topic that may be a little bit controversial today for any listeners out there. I'll give a disclaimer. And it's not ever that we are going to sit here on this side of this podcast and act like we've got everything figured out, but we get to host some of our amazing friends, Eric and Bre Scoville, here today and share them with you. We don't want to hold them to ourselves. We love them. They're very near and dear to our heart. They're also another homeschooling family. They love Christ, put him first in everything that they do. It exudes in every conversation I've ever had with them, and I am so excited for them to come on and share some information with you. But yeah, we do. We want to talk about some things. So, Eric, Bre, if you don't mind, Eric, I know you've been on the podcast before, but you brought your better three quarters with you
That's right.
today. So, if you would you guys tell us a little bit about your background as homeschool parents and just friends?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll do the brief part and hand it over to Bree, who's really the mastermind behind the architecture of the way we run our family now. We've made a lot of changes over the years. We have now been married 15 years, right? Or together? No, she's giving me the look. No, I think we've been together. I'm going to be caught on camera not doing a good job with the math here, so I'm just going to move on from that part. We've been together a long time and seen a lot of growth in our journey. We did not start out serving Christ. We started out kind of pretend Christians, where we would have said we were Christians, but had no proof, no evidence of our faith actually being walked out. And the Lord has been so gracious toward us and gentle in the reproof and leading us into a life that is more aligned with what he's designed. So I'll hand it over to Bre here to talk a little bit about how we have come into the homeschooling side of our family.
Yes. So I don't think I've ever been given the title of better three quarters, but I love it. I don't know if I can accept
That'll
it.
stick.
Yeah. Um, we got roped into homeschooling probably 3 years ago, I think, by a wonderful mentor to me now um, at a church class. And I had mentioned that maybe our oldest was going into a kindergarten, that following year, and that I had considered homeschooling, but just had no idea what that would look like. And not knowing, she was a homeschooling mom of four, one that had just graduated that year. So she was like a seasoned vet homeschooling mom, and she wrote me right in. And yeah, we started that journey, and it has been a um, evolving journey. Like every year is different. Um, I believe one of the first years of our homeschooling, I read Teaching from Rest, and how that just kind of shaped the year of like, hey, this is just 1 year. Let's just go and see what even the Lord wants you to do this year, and next year can be totally different. So it's just been a journey, and evolving for me too, to go from mom to teacher. And so for anyone out there that's wanting to do homeschooling and it feels daunting, just give yourself grace. A it's a process for both you and your children. So, but it's been a such a good choice. We don't regret it whatsoever. As hard as it is, I feel just so deep in my core that it's just the right choice.
Yeah, and I feel like with the homeschool community, like there is no comparison or we're doing it better and we have it all figured out. I feel like if anything, it is the exact opposite. Anytime you talk to a homeschooling mom or family, they're like, no, don't compare your kid. Don't think you're behind. Don't this. And it's just so giving, and it allows kids to develop at their own rate without that just comparison, and that, well, Tommy learned to read at 5, and
Right.
it just really gives so much room to let your kid be the individual. But something that I think a lot of people who are either with their kids all day or especially take on the role of mom and teacher is a lot of time in the negative sense of, oh, I could never be with my kids all day. And, just more so in a negative light and viewing our kids as a burden. And so I think that that's something that we can talk about today too, is are we trained to hate our kids? Or I don't really like the word hate. I even cringe to say that, but are we trained to act as if our kids are a burden? And what does that look like? Like, how do we approach that, or how can we turn that conversation?
Yeah, and I think for sure that's hate is a strong word. We say that anytime our kids say it.
Kids aren't allowed to say it.
And obviously that's not the inherent discussion here today, but I think if we look at it from a societal expectation, going way deeper into the roots of like, wait a second, why do we do things this way? I feel like a lot of people will say, well, hey, I'm just not meant to be a homeschool family or a homeschool mom or dad or anything like that. And I can understand that and I respect people's decisions. But I do think today's conversation is just around anybody that might be feeling that call or that pull. It's like maybe the way where I've been trained to do this and it's feeling unnatural, or I don't feel right sending my kid here or there or dealing with this or that. Like maybe just some validation from the Holy Spirit in our lives that no, there is a different way to do this, and maybe a way that we can actually um, allow our children to blossom in a different way.
Yeah, for sure. I just had a thought pop into my head regarding um, society's view on children. And I remember, I think it was Eric's mom, um, who said when she was growing up that children are expected or meant to be seen and not heard. And that like kind of rocked me. Like, what? Like they're just meant to be quiet and there and present and sit and be proper, and not be heard for their feelings, or or for just just playing. um, where was this birthed in our society? Where did this come from? Because I don't feel like it was always this way. Like going back to like even primitive um, culture or nature in instinctively in us, like we are meant to be protective in a family. And so where did this creep in somewhere along our norms of society? I don't know, but that comment just popped into my head. At some point I think there was a shift.
It's almost like the thought of being proper and the way that you appeared to other people took precedent over the quality of your family, the quality of your interactions with your family, the way that we raised our children. And now in our small group and many others around around the country here, we're dealing with so many wounds that we have, often dating back to our parents, and quite honestly our parents to their parents, with this, of these wounds that have been created here. And probably a lot of that has to do with what you're saying, Bre, of the idea that parenting was no longer meant to be parenting. Parenting was meant to have these kind of side ornaments of children that you just are waiting till they grow up and move out of the house and get out of your hair.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like there's just so much. I bet like any therapist can say that that is probably a common thing that they're seeing, like you said, in your small groups and all around. We're just trying to heal that. I mean, how often do our kids hear not necessarily our kids, but kids in general hear, oh, the terrible twos, or oh, I cannot wait until they are out of the house, and just speaking about them in a negative context where they can hear, like just making them again feel like that burden, and that they have to just hide maybe even how they're feeling, because if not, then there's just, it's almost making it more about the parent than it is the kids. It's like, why are we more important and our feelings more important than maybe what they're going through, or just really viewing as each and everything as a burden. And I remember when, I think it was more so when our girls were little, people look, oh, they're sweet now, but you just wait. It's always, you just wait. I'm like, wait for what? Every stage I have said, no, this is my favorite. Oh no, this is my favorite. But there's always the Betty at the store who, she'll tell you, no, you just wait till they're talking. They'll be talking back, which we do have talk backers, but that doesn't.
Betty, if you're listening, we love you.
Yeah. We just are grateful for the perspective you've given us, Betty. We're not upset at you, but I just think that there's a lot of that, that just how mainstream can really just make them burdens instead of the blessings that they are.
Right. And again, this is not any of this to say I feel so empowered by one thing or another, or we've got it figured and we're better than you because we do homeschool. Like it's just a matter of, I think there's a huge shift. I mean, you saw part of it, I do believe, was COVID breathed. There was a big percent shift. I think it was like 12% of America pre-COVID was homeschooling, and now that number is closer to 20%. Like it's, or at least at a time, maybe during COVID it was, and it's probably dipped back down and stuff. But it's just this idea that education has a purpose and a place and a role in society, but where does that stem from? Why do we do school the way that we do it? Like why are we supposed to do 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, way too early to way too late? Does it take that long for a kid to learn a lesson in a homeschool education, course?
I would say most definitely not. And I was just reading in a book that was written by um, a Christian counselor in Nashville, Tennessee. And um, what is that book? I'm so bad with titles. I don't know if it's Raising Emotionally Strong Boys or um, it was talking about our school system. Our modern school system is birthed out of the Industrial Revolution, and it it was designed. Our kids were designed, meant to go to school for 8 hours a day based on a parent's work schedule, and it was just bringing workers into the factory and giving a place for children to go. And so, like, that school day was just stuffed with nonsense. And I shouldn't say total nonsense, but like, curriculum, but then also all this extra fluff that they have to sit through where they should be outside. They should be exercising. They should be being able to be creative in their own minds and not being told, an assignment what to do. Like, I feel like the creativity is kind of stripped away in the school system.
Well, if you go to the other end of education, like higher education, right? I was explaining this to someone the other day. It might have been I guess they were a normal, traditional school, I guess you'd say, high schooler. And I was like, well, just wait till you get to college. You barely have class. Like, you go to a couple of classes, but you don't have these 8 hour long days. I was thinking about that even from this perspective. I'm like, oh, that's also the exact same way that we're doing things right now with school with the kids. And it just doesn't, right? Like, it just doesn't take them that long to grasp the math concept and the lesson from that day, or the, reading or language, whatever lesson they're getting that day. It's very short and concise. And then the rest of the time is it's creative play, it's artistic thought process. I mean, just that, like, creativity is so much more, I guess, blossomed in the way I feel like we're doing it. And I think there's purpose with that.
Something, Bre, you taught me was the way that children learn best. And quite a few, and especially boys, but not just limited boys, learn best sometimes in motion. and not sitting still in a desk looking straight forward. And as we sit right now, I have my feet on a hockey stick that I'm rocking back and forth. I have my hand on a basketball that I'm playing with while we're having this conversation. And my mind works best when I'm doing something. But you can't do this at school. But in homeschool, with a parent who understands you and understands how you really work well, they know how to work with that. And my mind works best when I'm doing something at work. And now that I'm an entrepreneur and have the freedom to not be under someone else's thumb, I have a hockey stick in my office, and I will literally stick handle while I am doing something creative, while I'm thinking. And my best thinking just happens to come out when I'm doing that. And so that's what you taught me about learning. And so, like, when I'm teaching our kids something, if I see them start to fidget or do something else, let it happen and let them, as long as they're still paying attention, let them maneuver and be different, which is back to the mold of we've tried to just institutionalize everything about our children and make every one of them the same, which is not how God created us.
Right. And it's funny because the other day, we were homeschooling, and my kids, they would I think it was math we were working on. They would do a line of I had them just doing some practice math problems, and they would do a line of all the math problems, and then they would do a lap. We live in a basement. Don't come for me. My kids ride scooters in the basement. It works. And they would do a lap in the scooter and come back, and it kept them engaged. It kept it fun. It kept them coming back. And I was telling Ryan, and he was like, that is the coolest thing ever. And it kept our son, who's 4, engaged in homeschool, whereas normally he wouldn't be, because you get bored and you need to move, and kids need movement. And how often are they told to sit still and then diagnosed with ADHD because they got ants in their pants? They just need a scooter.
Right. Nora does not do any math homework. She does not go top to bottom, left to right. She will move around, which is how, by the way, a problem solver solves a problem. Like in the real world, when the people who are making big things happen, they don't just work in a straight line with this. And she doesn't do that. But in school, she'd be corrected and just have her spirit broken.
Yeah.
So I have a correction with my book that I referenced if anyone is wanting to, look into some of the things I was talking about with schooling, or there's this little bits and pieces of it, but it's called Wild Things by David Thomas, and it's the art of nurturing boys and just what they need at every stage of their life. And so I love how it breaks down the things that the boy needs in each. I think there's different, like 5 different stages in a boy's life before he enters adulthood. So anyway, just wanted to plug that in.
Yeah.
That segment.
Just on that, to parlay off it, the boys thing, like boys and girls inherently different. You talk about Abby all the time, how different the girls are. And again, there's an age difference there, but their ability to just like, yeah, mom, let's do homeschool. And Jenny's like, no, mom, I just want to play and do. And again, his age, that's more appropriate. And there's all the different aspects, which I'm not going to go into on the science of brain development and all that stuff. Abby always yells at me when I do. But just that, like one thing, like right there, you said in that book, just as men, grown men have surges of like testosterone and things like that, so do young boys. And so now the percentage, I'm not going to quote it right now and get it wrong, but it is a statistically very significant percentage of boys increase on ADHD medication than our girls. And we're asking them, hey, let's just sit in your seat. And not only, diet and all this stuff plays a role, but like just from a hormonal perspective, like my son goes a little rage monster sometimes, and it's just like, that's a surge of a well-intentioned, God-breathed hormone that's in his body that we have to blossom and direct towards, purposeful intention, but not just, let it go rampant and go crazy and do bad things with it. But it's just like, it's strength for a purpose, and we don't want to hinder that,
Yeah, and I just, going back to just the thought of if you think of summer days when the kids are out of school, or maybe over the winter, and how maybe there's been a few snow days in a row, and you see a parent in the store and they're like, oh, I'm just ready for school to start. I can't handle my kids home. And I don't believe that. I really don't believe that parents actually feel that way. I think it's more so they're conditioned and they don't realize that that's just been trickled in by everything. Everything says that kids are an inconvenience. And I think that if you can challenge yourself to switch your mindset and see the blessing that they are, and people may feel bad for homeschool moms and people who are home with their kids all day. I'll say I was snowed in to my house for 7 days until my best friend came to rescue us because she had four-wheel drive while I was at work. And I loved it. There was nothing better. And I think that just when you choose to see them as a blessing and you choose to do life with them versus trying to always escape them to do your life. Now, don't get me wrong, an uninterrupted conversation is worth lots of money, but this is a season and it's not forever and you will miss it. And that is just everything that I go to. It's the house is a mess. You can't finish a conversation. you know, that's just all things that I know we will miss one day. And I'm so grateful to be able to have that interruption and messiness.
For sure. And I think that often, like when parents take in their kids for a snow day or for the summer, at least the summer is a little bit longer, but or Christmas break, it just, you're not in a routine anymore. And so, like, the the days can just feel chaotic because you're not in your a normal routine, and it just takes a while to get into that. Like when kids are there for the summer break or for Christmas break, or for us it's just our routine. But when you go from your normal routine of going to school every day to being home, it can feel just upside down, and so I understand where some people may be feeling that way. And it's almost like a hump, to get over to get into a routine as a homeschooling mom too, for school. And so I think there's that piece of it, but it's doable and it just takes time. I feel like it took us a good school year to like get into a good routine, of what works. And we had a baby a couple almost 2 years ago now. And so that just, we have to navigate things differently. And it's just constantly just changing, like what's needed.
Part of it comes into the idea that the wisdom that we've all heard, that life's about the journey, not the destination. For us, when we get focused on our to-do list, when we get focused on accomplishing our initiatives for the day, ourselves, yeah, like our adult initiatives. We need to get the house clean. We need to do this. We need to do that. We need to, get these things done. We lose the capacity to engage with our children where they need it. We lose the capacity to be interrupted. And when we get focused on those things, we get more focused on the destination of the short-term destination, we do a bad job in the journey in the short term. Same thing, you extend that out to the long term here, where, remember, go back to when you were first having kids and whether you struggled to have kids and you wanted to for a while or not, but when that first came, and it was such a blessing to do that, because in a lot of ways you're checking the next thing off the box that, okay, I'm at this age, I'm supposed to start having kids now. And so you get there and then you're into it, your kids are 5 or your kids are 15 and along the way, and you're just focused on the next piece of this destination here. And if you don't enjoy the journey, we miss it. I think the switching into a position of gratitude, even in the interruptions, changes everything. One of the things that I have done, and being someone who moderately cares about cleanliness, hair. When I have a wife and 2 girls that have a lot of hair, And so that means in the shower, there's hair. On the bathroom, there's hair. When I walk anywhere in my house with socks on, you look at the bottom of my feet, they are covered in hair. And whereas it used to frustrate me, I decided I could be thankful for that, because how grateful am I to have a wife? How grateful am I to have the girls? How grateful am I to have a wife that has hair, who's not going through, there are women who don't have hair because of their health concerns. And I can just totally flip that script to find things to be grateful for rather than the frustration of, oh, I've got all this hair around the house. And so I think the same thing with our kids, in the way that the interruptions, the things that are frustrating, we know for sure, because we've all heard it from people who have their kids out of the house, when you're going to miss it. You mentioned that already, that you were going to miss that. And so figure out how to enjoy those little things now along the way, even the things that are inconvenient, frustrating. You can choose to enjoy them, and it does work.
Yeah, it makes me think about there's a parable, a modern day parable, I guess you say, of the farmer. I've probably said this before, but two farmers, one's out, he's with his son building some fence, and farmer number two comes along. He's like, man, you could probably get a lot more done if he wasn't here helping you, huh? And the farmer number one just looks back and he's like, yeah, but the problem is you think I'm out here building fence, but really I'm out here building or raising a son. And it's like, it's just perspective, right? It's just shift, and the power of gratitude, and just being grateful and thankful for what is oftentimes, especially in our society, taught to be a burden and a problem. And it's such a negative connotation sometimes. It truly can be, if you want it to be, such a blessing to you, your family's life, and just your walk through this life.
How quick can you get things done? How quick can you get that fence done so you can get on to the next thing?
Mm-hmm.
But if you just slow down, and my wife is quick to point out, and not only just for me, certainly for me, but for both of us, and she'll say it, we are at our worst when we're in a hurry. When we are focused on our personal adult objectives, we're at our worst. When we are hurrying, we're at our worst. But at our best, when we're slow and we give something the time it needs to go build a man out of this boy who's doing this fence with us, we're at our best. And when we just need to get that fence done, we're like the farmer number two, who's just trying to get things done and move on to the next piece of his destination.
I absolutely agree with that. And I'm very much a list person, an accomplishing person. And, sometimes it's like I start my day by making a to-do list that's a mile long, and I make up a rule that I have to complete it all. And I'm like, says who? I am my own boss. And it's just this false pressure. And even with things like cooking and cleaning and laundry, I was sharing with you guys earlier that, you guys do this as well, but it's whenever I started to involve, each kid each week has a different focus, and one cooks with me, one does the laundry with me, one, helps set the table and clean. And it's like when I changed to that and I involved them, and it wasn't just another thing to check off my list, but a time that I could connect with them and invite them in and let them learn and just be a part of it with me, it really changed things. And I truly, the first week I did it, I was like, oh, like I actually enjoyed it, and I saw them in those moments, because I am very guilty of just needing to accomplish my list and plowing through the day and not just stopping and enjoying the moments that I could enjoy if I just slowed down and said, forget the list. I often have to say, like, I'm not being chased by a bear. My nervous system can calm down, and the list can stay until tomorrow.
Why do today what you could get done tomorrow, right? I too have had to learn to go to bed with a to-do list. Eric, Bre, maybe more specifically, what do you feel like? Are there things that you've learned to how you have to balance or harmonize the home with homeschooling, and then just the demands of day-to-day life and things to get done and stuff like that?
I think Abby's approach to involving the kids in the household chores or just the duties around is so important. I remember in one of the parenting books or classes that I had taken that kids have they're hardwired for belonging and significance. And when you involve them in family contributions, is what we call them, um, they feel significant. They feel like they belong in this family. They have a purpose. Um, and so balancing it all, like taking the pressure off, absolutely, like it is so self-imposed. Um, and sometimes there are things that absolutely have to get done, like if you're hosting small group that night, like obviously making something, or things have to get done, but getting creative and involving the kids in those decisions. If life happens and school doesn't happen that day, it's okay. We're not going to make this like a pressure or anxiety driven thing. um, we will make it up tomorrow or go a little bit longer into the spring or summer. We're just so flexible, and I thrive off of that. The kids, Eric and I have talked about this several times, thrive off of routine, um, where they know what to expect. And I think that is extremely helpful in just their behavior and um, in in my sanity as well. Just knowing like we don't have like a set schedule, but we have a routine. Like we do this in the morning or this in the afternoon, and that just helps everybody know what to do and what to expect and understand. And um, I feel like a lot of life gets thrown into, of course it does, in our routine, in our homeschool year, and that's okay. We roll with it.
One of the other things that I think is one of the themes behind this, of the way that we approach our children and the involvement with them. Part of the homeschooling thing is, are you shipping your kids off to be raised by someone else? Because if they're at school 8 to 9 hours a day, then they're spending more time with other people and other influences than they are with you. The couple of big hurdles are, I don't know if I can spend that much time with my children, which is what we're talking about here. And the other big one is financial. And we talk about this, that in America today, we have been taught that you need two incomes because you need to get your, if your income was 100,000 with one person, you need it to be 175,000 with two. Or if your income was, like, it doesn't matter with the numbers. If your income's 30,000, we've got to figure out how to get to 60. If your income's 60, then we've got to figure out how to get to 120. That's just how it works. Like, people feel like they just need about twice as much as what they have. And I work in finance now. I've seen this, but when I left construction to go into finance, and we put it all on the line, and we had built a house, and we had our first child, and we decided that we were going to be a single income family, it was, mathematically, it wasn't a good choice. It didn't look like a wise choice, but it was absolutely the very best financial decision we've ever made, was to allow Bre to really run our house, to be the mom who wants to be that active, the everything about this. And we didn't even know we were going to homeschool yet, but in that process. So I know that finances is another big hurdle that families face when they're thinking, I'd love to do this homeschooling thing, but I just can't because we're this behind, we're this in debt, whatever else. In partnering with the Holy Spirit with this, and the Lord's timing is perfect here. And not that every family needs to homeschool, but just this concept of giving your family what it actually deserves, and especially these precious years while your children are in your home under your roof. The financial piece of that, if that's where you feel is on your heart and the Lord's put that there, then He will provide, and you can trust Him with that. And it might look scary. We had, I tell the story a couple of times. We've been down to our last $1,000 a couple of times. We had $30,000 a month of business expenses and $10,000 a month of income at that point, and we were down to our last $10,000. Like, we have seen it look terrible, and then the Lord provide. But we honored Him, we trusted Him with this, and gave this all to Him along the way. So that's a hurdle that can absolutely be overcome.
Yeah, and I think It is one. I hear it all the time. Like, I would love to do this and love to homeschool, but I don't think we can be a one income family. And if we go back to Bre, something you were talking about earlier with the way that the school system is built around the parents' work environment, it's like, again, this could just be educational discourse. This is just conversation, right? But like, why is it that our world, we have to live in such a way that there are two incomes, right? Could it be that we actually could cut that down and live off half instead of double? Because I hear that all the time. Just about twice as much what I got now, I'd be okay. Well, and then it just, it just keeps going. But it's like, what would that look like, right? Doesn't nothing in it says it's easy. We're marketed to, right? Just insanely. We always need the next thing, the next best thing, the nicest this, the nicest that, right? What does life look like if we make that choice to step out in faith and say, you know what, I can do this, I can figure it out? The coolest thing about the homeschool community is that there's an entire community of amazing people out there that are doing this and have got it figured out. And it's 2025 now. There's so many different ways and things that you can do and come up with to make it work. It's something that it's at least worth pursuing. And I would be remiss if I didn't say, don't let that be the excuse, because there are greater priorities in raising our children than, the best school that they go to, or getting into a certain university, or whatever that might look like. Eric, you said it earlier. I mean, our primary purpose for our children is first and foremost that they know the Lord, and they do His will on this earth. I like to say they know Him and make Him known. Like, that would be my greatest desire for my children. However that falls into place, the Lord will work that out. I truly believe it.
Right, and the Lord will provide, in those in the lives of those that are serving Him anyway. And so, like, that is like the basic thing that we can do, and the most important thing that we can do as Christians. But going back to Ryan, what you said about not letting the one income household, hold you back. We're part of a very large co-op, and the majority of our families are one income families. But we do have a couple families that are two parents that still work full time and homeschool. They feel like it is a priority for them to homeschool their kids, and they are just making it happen. And I know they have good family support around them for childcare with their kids while they are working, and they do homeschool at night. And so you can get creative with it. My aunt homeschooled as a single mom and had to work. And so she just made it happen. And if you get creative with it, and if you want to make it a priority, you feel like in your heart right now is like saying that maybe you should consider it, I'd listen to it and just let the Lord work it out.
I agree. And I think that that's something that I know for myself is the part that you forget to go to first, is just praying about it, because ways will be revealed. And, in this time in 2025, there are so many different side hustles you could do, that you could work at any hour of the day from home after you've done homeschool, before you've done homeschool, really just log your own hours and choose when you do that. And so I really just think that, people would really see the fruit of being involved in your kids' everyday life, and getting to see your kids learn something new every single day and then get excited about it. There is just amazing things in that. And so if it's ever been on your heart to do that, I think that that's just a great place to explore and pray about, and just see what that may look like for your family. Because like you said, there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. And I promise you could probably ask any homeschool family, and they would love nothing more than to talk about it and come up with ideas of how you could make that happen and become a reality for your own family.
Yeah. So you heard it right there, guys. We you have 2 homeschool families right here that would be a resource to you. So don't hesitate. Reach out. We're here for you. We'd love to share any other resources that we've come across. If you've got questions, catch us in the group, message us, whatever. We want to be here for you. If you're really feeling called towards this as a lifestyle choice, don't hush that. Pursue it. Step into it. Ask questions. Seek and ye shall find. I think that's very applicable. So, Eric, Bre, thank you guys so much for being on,
Thank
sharing
you for
with
having
us.
us.
Yeah, it's been great. We're gonna have to do it again real soon.